Australian airline grounded more than 400 flights, saying long-running strikes are making it impossible for it to operate. The Aussie government took the stoppage so seriously, it asked the National Labour Tribunal to step in. Earlier Monday, the tribunal ordered Qantas to resume flying and the union to stop striking while talks to resolve the dispute continue. The row with the unions has been giving passengers headache for a year now. So, is Australians losing patience with their national airline? CNN explains.
Went up from Qantas passengers when finally the announcement came through that Qantas flights were cleared to take to the skies again, 44 hours after the shock lockout which was initiated. It's going to take about 2 days, though, to get operations back to normal. Passengers breathing a huge sigh of relief. It was relief more than frustration today. They say, in many cases, they understand why Qantas did what it did, and they're very happy to see that the strike is now over. But Qantas still has to strike a deal with the unions. They now have 3 weeks in which they will negotiate with the unions to try and get a deal. If that fails, the government will step in and make a deal for them. Qantas doesn't want to see that happen, neither do the unions. The pressure is now on all of them to reach a deal to keep Qantas in the air. But the restructuring of the airline, an iconic brand here in Australia, will go ahead. And that for passengers is a good thing because, as Alan Joyce, the CEO of the company, says, it ensures the airline's survival. Andrew Stevens, CNN, Sydney Airport.
6 people are dead and 5 others injured in Kandahar, Afghanistan, after a suicide bomber attacked the offices of a U.S. charity. An Afghan army commander says a truck full of explosives went off outside the International Relief and Development Building. He accused the Taliban of carrying out the attacks. CNN's Nick Patton-Walsh has details of that story in this report.
Born on a truck outside the compound of the U.S. charity IRD happened just after dawn, beginning this attack, after which it appears gunmen began to attack, some of them taking up position in a building nearby this compound, which is also near a guest house and some other key facilities for NGOs in the southern key city of Kandahar. The attack seems to have gone on for some time. The Afghan army commander we've spoken to saying 4 people died, 3 of them Afghan security guards, 1 Afghan civilian, and 2 suicide attackers were also shot dead. Well, we have just learned from the Afghan Interior Ministry that the attack that happened on Saturday, in which a suicide bomber drove a car of explosives into a NATO convoy, killing 13 ISAF civilians and military personnel, was, according to their preliminary investigation and evidence, carried out by the Haqqani network. Now, that is significant because the Haqqanis have been blamed here over the past few months for a series of increasingly sophisticated attacks against the Intercontinental Hotel, against the United States Embassy compound here. They are saying that their investigations here are at an early stage, but the evidence they have suggests the Haqqanis were behind this. That makes sense to some analysts because the Haqqanis have been increasingly sophisticated in their tactics. This attack obviously precise in that it knew a NATO armoured bus was travelling down a road on the outskirts of Kabul at a specific time and was able to target it with an enormous amount of explosives. I should also point out that at this stage an ISAF spokesman says their intelligence and investigation at this point does not establish a clear link to the Haqqani network, but absolutely the Haqqanis, who under great scrutiny because of their alleged safe havens in Pakistan, very much the focus here of these increasingly penetrating attacks in the Afghan capital, Kabul, up until a few months ago considered a relative safe haven.
Well, time now to take our second break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Champions League will be keeping European football fans on the edge of their seats this week, and that may include the two-time winner Samuel Eto'o. The Cameroon striker would probably have been playing eighth in the season had he not left Inter Milan for the Russian team Anzhi Mashakala. CNN's Pedro Pinto spent some time in Russia with Eto'o recently, and he was good enough to answer some questions sent in by football fans.
That they keep playing. I think the best football is played in the street. A few years ago now, I created a football school for African kids in Gabon, and I hope that between now and the time I retire, we have schools in 4 or 5 more countries. I really want to see African football grow. It's important that we give African kids the same environment and conditions as the kids in Europe. I want to give back to football what football has given to me. No, not for now. I want to focus on the project we have started here at Anzhi and give all my energy to that. I hope that in a short space of time, we are able to play in the Champions League. Be honest, it's a long-standing problem. We've been carrying a lot of problems on our backs for a while now. And to be honest, again, this is the time we need to stop and rebuild the team at every level to be able to return to where we were. We could have qualified, but we were not going to be able to play at the right level and at the level the world expects of Cameroon. I'm sure that over the next 10 years, this team will play at a very high level and win lots of titles for the good of Cameroon and, above all else, for the good of all Africa. Carlos Puyol. He's the player who has known best how to defend against me his whole career. To win again with Anzhi, that would be the most beautiful thing that has happened to me in my career. When I got to Barca, the project had already begun. But then I went to Mallorca. We started at point A, and as a team, we took it to point Z. Now with Anzhi, if we can go from A to Z once more, that would be something really beautiful.
I'm a big fan of Papa Eto'o. And before we end this edition of the news, a recap of the top stories. Taiwan's ambassador to the Gambia has handed over checks with a cumulative value of $23 million to government officials. The National Security Council has scaled up efforts at guaranteeing a peaceful election with a skills acquisition program for a critical mass of security personnel. A truck bomb blamed on the Taliban has killed 6 people and left 5 others with injuries in the restive Afghan city of Kandahar. And Qantas aircraft have taken to the skies after a 48 hours industrial action by its staff left about 20,000 travelers stranded. And that's the end of the news. Thank you very much for your time, and you can follow our stories and other GRTS programs live on www.grts.gm. There you can also monitor GRTS Radio live. Thank you so much for your time, and Fila with Blacker Shine and X Miles is coming up next.
We define and the say Bob Chopet on life. Bob Chopet to Gambia. By go to United States of America. To Big Toe. Bob Chopet in the data white. Deny Gambia. Can let done. Friday 11 November 2008.